heard, what they saw, oftentimes sharing their own stories or experiences. So, and David's going to moderate because he has some expertise in this kind of topic. And so, does anybody have a question or a comment for anybody?
I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
I just really don't know how to say that.
Thank you.
Would you like to come up with that?
Thank you.
That's excellent. I have a question.
Yes.
Did you ever blame your mother?
Never, because when I told her, she believed me.
I was so impressed by that.
She, like, as she said, she's kind of stopped her life to save mine. So, never.
So many people I've known that have had those kind of issues. One of the problems has been a lack of belief from the adults in their lives. Your mother just blew me away. I mean, she still obviously has feelings of what could I have done differently, but boy, she did what she could, didn't she?
She did. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your stories. I think a lot of people need to hear these stories, and if you're saying being vulnerable again with one another, very grateful for that. And it's a little more personal too, but I was just wondering, for both of you, what compelled you, like what was the moment where like you decided you were going to speak out about what had happened? Like, was there like, not saying like an epiphany, but like it's such a moment for you, like what was that moment when you called your mother and you said that, like what was kind of like that impulse? Because I do know a lot of times like the sexual abuse belongs to a lot of times, and there's different causes that like to speak out. I just wondering if there was any specific point where you're like, this is when I have to speak.
So, I mean, every day I wanted to say something. And it's not a day that went by that I didn't want to say something, like literally every day. But it's not a conversation that you just have at the dinner table, right? And so it's like finding the right time, and there's never a right time. There's birthdays, there's holidays, there's this and there's that. And so you find all of these reasons and ways to talk yourself out of it. And that's pretty much what I did for 17 years. But when the TEDx committee, they wrote me and they reached out and they were like, oh, you've been nominated to give a TED Talk. I didn't know what I was going to talk about at all. And randomly one morning at like 2 a.m. I woke up and I couldn't sleep, and I started writing. And those were the words that came out. And one of my favorite poets, she has, I'm not going to read it to you because it's on Instagram and I don't want to be labeled as a millennial, even though I am, but I'll summarize it. She pretty much says that the thing that you are most afraid of, write it down, because that's how you know that it is true. And so it sounds better than that when she wrote it. But that was the moment for me. Me writing it down made it like my reality. And so I knew that I needed to share my story, because oftentimes there are so many people that haven't. And when after I finished giving my TED Talk, there were so many people that came up to me just to say thank you. And I'm like, why are you thanking me? And they were like, because I am also a victim and I never said anything. And so that was the number one reason. So for me, I guess it's twofold. There's when I told my mother I was 15 and a half, and I don't know if folks in here are Catholic or know anything about Catholicism, but a lot of the priests, they move from churches to churches. So in this case, Father Rich had moved to another church, and word got back to me that he was getting married. He was leaving the priesthood. And so I felt used. I felt like everything was not what I thought it was. And I wanted to die, And so I called my mother and I confessed to her what I'd done. So it was kind of like, at that time I realized what it was.
you know, I realized that it wasn't a love affair. We weren't going to go off and get married somewhere. And I think my reason for making the film was because I was in graduate school, and I wanted to do a project that I could put everything into. And as you see, I told my mother's side of this. I let her tell her story. 2 years ago, me and my partner, we had a baby, and then before that, I never thought about how the abuse affected my mother. It wasn't until we had our daughter that I was thinking like, shit, like, yo, like, anything could happen to her, you know, blah, 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 this. And then I started thinking about how my mother, like what she went through, because I was so tunnel vision on just trying to survive that I didn't think about that. So I probably answered your question plus more, but it was kind of twofold when I told her and then when I decided to share. This is like still kind of weird for me because just like you said, this isn't something you talk about at a cocktail party or something you talk about at dinner. So just putting my life up there and like sharing it, it's kind of, you know, I mean, this is a good space to do it, but you know, it's kind of crazy.
Everyone looked at me, so I figured that was this. Yeah, I'm interested. So you never told anyone until the TEDx talk, or you told them, or like few people?
Yeah, so I did tell a few people, but it wasn't in detail. So it was kind of like, yeah, I had these interactions with my stepfather. I'm not really sure what they were. It was kind of like me still trying to figure it out and going on my own personal and spiritual journey of what happened. Since it happened so long ago, it was kind of like me trying to differentiate, am I making this up? Like, have I like thought of new things that didn't really happen? It goes back to the blaming. I'm like, okay, was this real? Like, did it really happen? And I know it was, and then it's are they gonna believe me? Are they gonna believe my story? Because that's another reason why people don't tell anyone, is because like you need validation in this moment. A lot of times as a black woman, I'm like, I don't need your validation. But in this situation, you need that validation because a lot of times the blame goes on the victim or the survivor. They're blamed. And so I told a couple of people, but it wasn't on, like, most of my family didn't know, and that was who was most important to me.
And when they found out, how did they react?
So there was some shock, there was some disappointment that I didn't say anything, there was anger, I think there was all the emotions that there could be. But honestly, when my family first watched it, they texted me, which wasn't a response I wanted. I wanted people calling me. But on the other end, I'm trying to think like, did I really want people calling me? Because the way it happened was I told my story in Rhode Island first. And then Ted has to review it, and it takes a couple of months. And it didn't get put out into the public until November. And so I went all that time, you know, knowing what I had done in Rhode Island without the rest of the world knowing. And so my family didn't know until they watched it. So even after my TED Talk, I didn't go say, oh yeah, I did a TED Talk about molestation. No, I waited until they actually watched it. And so their initial response was to text me their feelings, and I would have appreciated a call.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing your stories. You were very well poised, and the video was very great. And I think you took the aspect of your mother that was very interesting. I really liked it. I think for me, my question was, since you grew up in around Catholicism and you were talking about prayer, from your experiences, how has your prayer and faith life changed? Do you still pray? Do you still have faith? What is so different now than before, since your truth has come out?
I still pray. I still believe in God. I live the Lukumi way of life, meaning Lukumi is synonymous with Santeria. So my gods look like me now. You know what I mean? And they're everywhere. You know, they're the trees, the sun, the breeze, the whatever. But like, God is I believe like that's it. That's my life. So I think it's gotten stronger, right? So I think and plus I've grown. This was like a super long time ago. Like, you make me feel aged now, you know. So this was a super long time ago, and as an adult, like, you know, I struggled. Like I thought God had it out against me for a long time. You know, I was angry. I was, you know, I mean, I kind of still believe, but I was angry, you know, until I found something that was for me, you know, something that, like, it's not even like really, it's a lifestyle. So I think it's made me strong. It's made me kind of accept who I am, and, you know, and what can I do with it now? You know, how can I flip it? So yeah, I believe, like, most definitely.
And for me, growing up in Mississippi, everyone knows Mississippi's a part of the Bible Belt, and it's very religious. And one of the things that a lot of people in Mississippi, especially in the Black community, they don't rely on like mental health and wellness and social and emotional wellness, and they say pray it away. You know, all you got to do is pray. Just pray about it. And so that's why I said I spent most of my time praying about it, and I'm like, one, I'm still gay, and two, this still happened to me. So clearly I'm not praying right, and somebody needs to let me know, who should I be praying to. And so I'm serious. And so, because that's what you hear, just pray about it. You're not praying enough. It's not changing. And so now today, I'm not praying to a God. I feel that God is within me. I feel that God is within all of us. Like she said, God is in the trees, the breeze, the energies, the rocks, just everything. And I'm now on a more spiritual journey. Like, I've been aligning my chakras. But with that in mind about the praying and the mental health, I'm also going to therapy. And that's something that we place a stigma on, therapy. Like, just because you go to therapy does not make you crazy. Like, I recommend therapy for everyone, even on your best day. When you come out of therapy, I feel good when I come out of therapy. Not all the time, but it's not something that should be looked at as it's something wrong with you if you seek help. And we all need help, but it first takes that step of being vulnerable. And so through therapy and through meditation, and listening to my inner self and my intuition, my focus on this one God and this one being has completely changed.
Yeah.
If you could go back and talk to those little girls that you once were, or maybe there's somebody here in the audience today that is hiding the secret of their own, what would you say?
So I would first just say it's okay to be afraid. I think whenever we feel fear, we run away. But that's when we should actually step into it. I tell my students all the time, that level of discomfort that you're feeling, that queasiness, whatever it is, that's the moment that you should dive into that thing, because that's going to push the boundary and that's going to make the change that you actually need. And so all the fear that I was feeling then, I would have told myself to actually explore that fear more instead of shying away from it.
That's a great question. I don't really know what I would tell her, because I thought I loved him, right? So I don't know. I don't know what I would tell her. Maybe maybe if you know, maybe I would tell her, if you love him so much, then you should be able to share with everybody who you love, or something like that. Like, I don't, like, it's weird because, like at this moment, I don't feel any animosity, you know. And I mean, it's over time, like, you know, things have evolved and things have changed, you know, that anger is gone or whatever. But like, as of now, I thought I was in love. I thought he loved me. He, you know, I don't know what I would tell her, you know, except that if you love someone, you should be able to share it with the world, right? And so, like, if I loved Father Rich, I should have been able to share it with my family and not hide it, you know. And then, you know, folks might have come in or did whatever, but I mean, that's a great question.